Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and as always, I just want to give a huge thank you for inviting me into your day today. Now, before we dive into this conversation, I want to share a quote. Okay. I read this quote and it resonated with me, and I want to share it with you. It says, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." And those inspirational words come to us from Shirley Chisholm, who was an African American politician and who became the first Black woman to be elected into the United States Congress. What beautiful and inspiring words, Shirley. Now, in today's episode, we are talking all about branding and marketing. And I know you're going to love Janice Pollard, who is my guest today. We are diving into, quite a large concept of branding and marketing your short-term rental business, and how little things like a logo and the colors you choose actually has a tremendous impact. So get ready. I would say grab a pen and paper. You're probably going to want to take some notes, but I hope you enjoy my conversation with Janice. And without further ado, let's dive in. So today we are here with Janice Pollard, and we are talking all about branding for your short-term rentals. Janice, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, Stacey, I'm so excited to talk to you. It'll be fun.
This is going to be such a fun convo. Now, before we dive in, why don't we start off and just have you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, who I am. Isn't that one for the ages? Janice Pollard, founder of Marshmallow Hill, which is a short-term rental design company. And I also have folded in marketing and branding services to that to make it a holistic experience for small business owners. And I also aspire, and I'm very close to having my first short-term rental. So yay, I'm very excited. Yeah, so I spent 20 years in marketing and branding, both on the agency side and as a client. I was a director of marketing with 3 agencies working with me. And I've just had a front row seat or backstage pass to whatever you want to call it of how brands are really engaging consumers. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like in this industry, in short-term rentals, how can small business owners be successful by taking some of those elements? So I'm kind of feeling out like, how can I really position myself to help them be successful?
I love that. And, I think the concept of branding and marketing feels so large because, quite candidly, it is, right? Yeah. There are people that, have 4-year degrees in this stuff and pay big bucks in the corporate world to hire agencies to come up with effective marketing campaigns. And I think it can feel really challenging for short-term rental hosts, small business owners, to really understand how they can incorporate best practices when it comes to branding and marketing into their businesses. And so we're going to just have a conversation about some of the basic elements that can really, really move the needle. And Janice, I appreciate your willingness to kind of peel back the layers and share your knowledge with us.
Yeah, it will be fun. And I do think it can seem daunting. I've seen it happen where even just creating a logo can and should, for big brands, take months or even over a year because they have focus groups and agencies and stakeholders and CEOs and there's an iterative process. But today I'm hoping to just kind of distill it down and keep it simple. So.
Yeah. I love that. So let's start off talking about a logo. For any listener who may be new to the marketing space, a logo, how would you describe a logo in a nutshell?
It's funny because I feel like a lot of people think a logo is going to create brand awareness. And really a logo's sole purpose on earth is to identify your brand. That's all it does. So if you think about 2 empty glasses of cola, they look exactly the same. They might taste slightly different. You might be able to taste a little bit of a difference. But until that logo goes on the front of the glass, like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, you don't really know. It's only there to identify which is which, right? It's not creating brand awareness. It's just identifying. So that's the simple way, my trick of just saying, like, it's not going to do all your marketing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And when you were just giving that example, I'm totally going to date myself here. Okay. But when I was a kid, there were all kinds of commercials on TV about the Pepsi challenge.
Yeah, of course. That? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it is such a great way to describe, the essence of a logo. It's simply an identifier. Right.
Yeah. So if you think about all the ways that they go to market with their individual brands, a lot of it is sponsorships and advertising on TV or maybe Super Bowl ads or what have you. They're spending big dollars, but that's not the logo's job. The logo they put a lot into what it looks like, the brand experience, the look and feel, but that it's really there to identify it as a company, as a mark. And then just taking the cola example, they still have different logos. You have Diet Coke, Coke Zero, but they hit the underbed is you can identify it pretty quickly as one umbrella of a brand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I was working in the corporate world, I actually worked with very large brands and agencies, and it was mind-boggling to me too, to actually be exposed to how one company has a multitude of brands, which is a totally different podcast episode, one I won't dive into now. But again, I think it's such an amazing world of branding and marketing. And when you think about these big businesses, large companies, and all the brands within them, it's really cool. And I just share that because if a large company can have a multitude of brands, as a small business owner, we just have to focus on one.
For sure. Oh, for sure. When you just said that, it calls to mind, I'm going to say something and now your listeners won't be able to unsee it. But the FedEx logo, have you ever noticed the white arrow inside the FedEx logo? They use white space strategically between I don't have it in front of me, the D and the E, I think, and the E and the X. So when you see the truck go by, you'll see a white space arrow. And because that's part of their strategy, and the colors are different for FedEx Ground, FedEx International, FedEx Overnight. Sometimes they use orange, green, blue, but the arrow shows A to B. It shows forward motion. Like, it's very strategic, but it's so subtle. And now when you see the FedEx truck go by, you'll say, oh my God, there is a white arrow. It's so cool.
I feel like I need to I know, ship myself something just so I can see it.
Yeah. It's so fun.
Oh, that's fun. Okay. So talk to me about, the key components of a logo. What are the things that make a logo effective? You just spoke about strategic use of white space.
Yep.
Talk to me about what else is important to make a logo effective.
Well, you can jump into logos. There's usually I advise some homework in front of a logo, like who are you, right? And maybe even more importantly, why you do what you do, because that's going to inform the logo, the color strategy, where your property is located. Obviously if you're on 30A, it's a beachy vibe. You're not going to come in with, moody cabin colors. So it's colors, it's font, it's the name. Naming your property has a strategy too. And there's ways that I help clients check that and go through those gate points. But really, fonts have an influence, colors have an influence, the shape of your logo. Typically, especially because you're online, you'll have logo iterations, and not the colas we were talking about, not the FedExes we were talking about, but just a stacked logo a badge logo for social media. Like you always need a profile picture. You might have a long, narrow one. You might have a white one and a black one just for different like for embroidery or for printed items, a full color one. So you'll have iterations of that. And that's what a designer can help you go through. But in essence, the foundation is your fonts, colors, your vibe, who are you, why you do what you do, and all of the basics of what pulls that together.
Awesome. I also want to ask you about simplicity, because I think a lot of people try to stack a whole bunch of things into a logo. And if you look at some of the most, prominent brands out there, their logos are extremely simple. Talk to me about your perspective of simplicity and why that may be important.
I'm so an advocate of simplicity. A lot of times you can get, I'll call it clip art or Canva logos. I can also help people navigate Canva a little bit, but you'll see like the little details in the palm trees and 2 little coconuts falling and maybe some waves in the background and a bird. But if you squint or if you back up, let's picture that logo is on a sign and you're driving by. If all those details are critical, you're going to miss it. Or if you're going to go take all of those colors, and let's say you have 6 colors in a logo because there's a sunset and some clouds. And once you go to print that, all of that detail is going to get watered down. So I feel like 2 colors, 3 colors max on a logo, and then keep it as simple and streamlined as possible. It doesn't mean you can't add a tagline for effect or put a very simple logo on something that's really exciting. But the logo really, like, does somebody picture it on a billboard? Can somebody drive by and identify you at 65 miles an hour or faster?
I was going to say, I'm a you drive the speed limit, girl.
Let's keep it a PC.
Yeah. And I mean, again, let's put it into real life. Think about the Target logo. Think about,
yes.
Chick-fil-A, 2 colors, right? And I don't know why I have chicken on my brain, but, Popeyes or Kentucky Fried, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Clearly, I must be having chicken for dinner tonight and I don't even know it, but it's right. As long as it's grilled chicken. But yeah, I mean, the color schemes really, really play a part and can make it recognizable, but keeping it simple is so important.
Yep.
We've talked about colors a bit. Talk to me a little bit about the psychology of colors. How can colors actually direct how people perceive a brand?
Oh my gosh, there's so much that colors evoke emotion, and emotions create a response that you don't even know is happening. So all the reds you mentioned, from Target to Chick-fil-A to Kentucky Fried Chicken, did you know that red, orange, and yellow, now you'll see, like, anytime you see fast food, there's one of those colors pretty much. I mean, I can think of Culver's as blue and white, but maybe there's a few that aren't, but red and orange and yellow stimulate your appetite. And fast food, you're already hungry. You're already kind of like needing something quick. So they use that as a strategy to get you in the drive-through quick, right? Purple is known for regal, luxury, loyalty, very upscale. Blue you'll see in banks, right? Because it conveys trustworthiness. It conveys wholesomeness. Or green would be like nature, freshness, money sometimes. So there's all these things happening in your brain that people have spent years dissecting and researching to figure out what's going to trigger you. And the funny thing is, we as consumers don't even know it's happening. Yeah. You have 2 choices in front of you and you could say, well, why'd you pick that one? Well, I don't know. I liked it. Right. You can't explain it. It's just just an inherent value. Maybe it's something from your memory or your past that you resonate with, which a marketer couldn't know, but they know through aggregate data that it works for most people, or for most women, or for most men, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. It's wild. It is wild to think about all of the subconscious reactions to colors that our bodies have.
Yeah.
It's funny. Last week, my husband decided he needed to buy a new car. Just, kind of out of the blue. Sure. But we were sitting in the car dealership and there's ambient lighting, in the car dealership. And immediately I started picking up on the fact that, okay, this ambient lighting is this color for a reason.
What
Anyway,
color?
it was green.
It was green as go, right?
Yep. Anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that does. I haven't seen that happen.
I'm curious about any tools or resources that you might be able to recommend or share that have people beyond a logo select a color scheme for their brand. I think that, again, that can be really challenging for folks if they have never, done any brand building in the past, just even knowing what should I have.
For sure.
Talk to me about any resources that you find helpful.
Well, for a short-term rental owner, chances are you're already on Airbnb, VRBO. A lot of people that I talk to are considering a direct booking site because of some frustrations on the hosting side. They tend to favor the guest, or policies change, or there's a groundswell of, I think, of people coming for a direct booking site. So in any case, you're online. You have an online presence. On Airbnb and VRBO, you might not have a logo yet because you just have your listing and photos. But what you can do is go just into your photos, like pull them all up and look at them holistically. What are the main colors happening in your photos? Because you're going to be able to pull those specific vibes into a color that looks good on top of your photos, right? It's going to be front and center in front of your photos. So you could go in with a color picker, and you need some tools for this. Canva is great. Like, Canva's free. You can definitely use a color picker for that. Or if you have Photoshop or know somebody with Photoshop, but just go in and start to see, like, wow, there is a lot of turquoise. And I have an example on one of the things that I teach is this property used a great palette of, they have all the C colors of 30A. So like lots of different blues, sandy beiges. And then she used pops of coral and fuchsia. Like, that's perfect for a logo. The turquoise and fuchsia just say fun. They say relaxation, beach time. So she could take those colors, fold those into a logo, and they look great with her photos. So that's one place to start. You just don't want those two experiences, the logo and your photos, to feel like two totally different brands.
That's a really interesting perspective. I was going to say, it makes me think about, okay, my logo for my own business, how does that reflect with my own properties? And I do feel like it would fit well. So yeah, good news.
Yeah, you check out.
But it's really interesting to hear you say that. One of the things that I find challenging is I might have a core color that I like to use, but finding colors within the color wheel that go with that core color, that's a challenge for me. Like, that is not easy to do for me personally. Yeah. One of the tools that I like to use is, I'm assuming I pronounce it Coolors, but it's COOLORS.co.
Yes.
Is that how I say it? Is it Coolors?
I think so. It's a strange name.
It very much is. But it's a strange name, but it's a great tool because you can go in and put in, as Janice just said, determine your core color, use a color picker on Canva, and then look at the hex code, which is a 6-digit or 6-character code. Put that into coolors.co, and then you lock that. So you can lock it and then push your space bar, and it will come up with its own color scheme. Once you find a secondary color you like, lock that. But it will allow you to create color schemes that I could never come up with on my own. It's a wonderful tool.
Right. Yep. And it's kind of like being at the paint store when they give you those suggested color swatches. And you're like, wow, I would never put that together, but they work, and people have studied this, and there's experts behind the scenes pulling that together. So that's another great place to start. Just go to Lowe's. Go to Lowe's. Get your logo at Lowe's.
That's awesome. So I'm also curious about any other tools or hacks that you really like when it comes to choosing color schemes or creating a logo. What other advice would you have for our listeners?
There's a color wheel. So you could Google this and learn a lot about color strategy on a color wheel. One interesting thing I learned a while back is colors that are, so, okay, let me go through just a basic. I know where, for most of your listeners, it won't be visual, but the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, blue, and then secondary colors are orange, green, and purple, right? And then within that, you have tertiary colors and a million, really, it's like a prism of a million colors. But colors that are opposite on the color wheel drive excitement and motion. So if you think of sports teams, like I'm in Michigan and Detroit Tigers are blue and orange because they make each other pop. I think Minnesota Vikings are blue, or maybe they're purple and yellow. Is that right? I mean, they're opposite in the color wheel.
I have no clue.
I'm just thinking like, or even in kids' sports teams, you think about like they're using bright, vibrant, motion-driven colors to drive excitement. If your brand is calming and relaxing and you want people to feel just a vibe and just to like totally let go, you're going to push the color wheel toward the whites, not white colors, but the white version of a color. So maybe it's desaturating a blue color, so it's like a nice soft blue, or desaturating a green color, so it's just calming and not this bold sports green or sports red. There's a lot of theory in saturation and hue, so that you evoke those emotions with how much white or black is in any given color. So that's color is a whole, it could be a whole hour. If you just do the color wheel or the psychology of colors, you'll learn so much about and by the way, they could mean good things and they could mean negative things. So it is something to kind of research.
Now, I'm curious, I'm going to go off topic just a hair, but knowing you have a background in design, I just want to talk with you about this. Sometimes you'll see short-term rental properties that it's like someone has taken a course that says you need to have all bright colors in your property. You go from room to room and you kind of feel like you're in a circus, right? I'm curious how you feel like color plays a part inside a property as well, and how it should align with your brand.
Oh, for sure. And that could be a good strategy. If your target audience, like I come from marketing, so it's always target audience to me, but guest avatar or your composite guest, let's call it that, is the bachelorette party or women or anybody. If you know who that audience is and you're like, this place needs to be fun, it needs to be vibrant, people need to know there's going to be great stuff to do here and it's going to be a really great time. Sure, put in excitement, put in vibrancy. If you're in a mountain cabin, chances are you're going to feel like those earth tones. You're going to feel like, I just had an example with like the deep, moody greens or golds from the earth and things like that. So a lot of it is driven by where your property is located because people are going there for a reason. But if, let's say every room is bright and colorful, as long as it's consistent and there's no surprises and there's, because your colors in your property really are an extension of your brand. I feel like you're saying, this is what you can expect when you get here. That's all about what a brand is. Like from the beginning of our call, Coca-Cola, what to expect because the brand and they've built that equity over time. Same thing goes with your short-term rental. If you're going room to room and all of a sudden, you're creating a calm, peaceful Zen yoga room, and that's all grays, whites, and neutrals, but the rest of your place is bright fuchsia, that's going to feel like, oh, that's an afterthought, or that's a little odd. So just some things to think about. It's, knowing who your target is before you design and creating a consistent look from room to room.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm curious too. I've seen some people, I've got a lot of properties at the beach. I love the beach. In my brain, a beach property should have a certain vibe. Now, I have an opinion about these things that I will keep to myself, but I see some people doing like red and brown and orange at the beach. And I kind of want to lovingly go, what on earth are you doing? I'm curious, do you feel like reds, browns, oranges can work in a beach vibe? Do you feel like blues and teals can work in a cabin setting? Or should we have built up resistance in our brain? If you're tempted to bring red to your beach property, hold on, time out, think again. What are your thoughts there?
I would say, what is your strategy? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're the owner who has red everywhere because I love red, is it about you? Is it about your preferences, or is it about the experience and the expectations that you're setting with your guests? Does it mean it can't work? No. What I'm picturing is red, or what did you say? Red, brown, and orange in a beach property. So like, I don't know if we're on camera, like if you took this orange and you just did pops of orange with those turquoise blues on the beach and maybe whites and grays, sure, that could work as just a fun little accent color. Would I throw it on every wall? No.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do red, could I add a bunch of white into the red so it's more of a soft, not so jarring red? They can work, but really consider your strategy and your who. Like, why are you doing this, right? Like,
I love that you are talking about your strategy, because I definitely believe wholeheartedly in operating from a strategy first approach. Everything we do rather needs to have a strategy before execution. And when we take that strategy first approach, it actually makes the execution a heck of a lot easier.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So I love that you're saying that.
That's part of the homework that you need to do when you're setting out with a brand, because it becomes your whole foundation and your whole playbook for, let's say you bring in a partner to your business, you hand off your brand foundation to them. I'm not saying you need, a brand agency and all that, but let's say here's my colors, here's my logo, here's the fonts I use, and here's the tone of voice. And then people should be, 75% there with executing anything that you need them to do. Or here's the colors I like, handing off a project to a virtual designer or an interior designer. Here's my palette. Here's my vibe. Like, it's so much easier as a jumping off point when you know who your brand is, and you can easily. And by the way, a lot of big brands, most of them will have a brand style guide. So it's all documented. This is how to use this particular version of the logo on this application. And, obviously short-term rental owners don't need to get into that detail, but it will have who we are, how you can sound, your tone of voice, what not to say, and lots of guidelines. But having that foundation is critical, because as you grow and build in more partners, it just makes it a seamless experience on the back end.
Totally. And I do want to encourage our listeners, if you are looking to grow your portfolio and bring on help in your business, actually having a brand Bible or some sort of brand standards is incredibly helpful, because then your virtual assistants know what your tone of voice is, and they can be sure to speak to your guests with your tone of voice, through conversations, through review responses, through any communication. As you are setting up, direct booking websites, as you mentioned, Janice, it's really, really important and helpful to have those brand standards at the forefront. You might grow from 1 property to 5 to 10, and you want your brand to be consistent across all your properties, even though you might have beach, cabin, urban, mountain, you want your brand to be consistent across, all of those. So I love the idea of creating a brand Bible or brand standards for short-term rental owners, because I have found it, for me personally, incredibly helpful.
Right. I have a funny story too. I used to be a copywriter for Coca-Cola as part of an agency. And we were writing promotional experiences that were very exciting. Like you could have a chance to win, micro rewards points or whatever it was. And so we were trying to be excitable. And I used an exclamation point in the copy, like you could win or whatever it was.
Right.
And the client said, take out all exclamation points. We don't exclaim. And I'm like, oh, okay. Wow. That's awesome. Like, I loved it. We don't exclaim. Like, oh my gosh, that they know who they are. And I just learned a lesson. It was awesome.
I have to say, I would not fit in well with Coca-Cola because I feel like I use exclamation points and smiley faces in every communication.
Right. I know.
A lot of times I will talk into my phone and I'm like, hey there, exclamation point, smiley face. And my family's like, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
Yep.
But it's me. It's my personality. And that's the way I like to communicate. So,
yeah, for sure.
Okay, good to know. Don't ever apply for a job at Coca-Cola, Stacey. I love it. So I want to also talk with you a little bit about how to create a memorable brand through your listing. What can someone do? So let's say, okay, great. We've got our colors picked out. We've got a logo. We've created brand standards. Maybe we have a direct booking website with the fonts that we've selected, that represent our brand. We have our tone of voice dialed in. How can we integrate our brand standards into our properties themselves to really drive repeat bookings, to drive that brand experience for guests?
Yep. A lot of that is calling back to some early homework. And I just realized there's a really easy way that I've taught other people how to do this, but it's really applicable here too, is in a journalism course or on a news story, you'll hear the 5 W's. I don't know have you heard of the 5 W's, like who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes there's an H, a how. Every news story has that. But a short-term rental owner can also use that exercise to create their foundation. So who on both sides? So taking the who is your target guest? Who are you? What do you believe in, right? Who is your property? Are you a couple? Are you like define who you are before you're even setting foot on this ground? What are you could just, I have this all laid out, but who, what, when, where, why, probably who and why are the biggest ones. Why do you do what you do? Mm-hmm. Yes, you're in short-term rentals to make money. Yes, you want to build generational wealth, but why this industry? Why do you feel like you can do it well or better or best than anybody else? Because that's what people will latch on to. Stacey, I don't remember if you remember the Simon Sinek had a video called Start With Why. And I feel like it was 2009, 2010. But he goes into how businesses have transformed their customer relationships by starting with why we do what we do. Whereas other companies start with what we do. Oh, we build computers. Mm-hmm. Apple starts with, we can create a seamless experience for you, right? Mm-hmm. Not those words, but you latch on to like, oh, I want a seamless experience. So it all draws back to that foundation of thinking about who, what, when, where, why, how, on both sides, both for your ideal guest and for you as a brand, and then implementing that into every single touch point. So when you talk about your online listings, can you evoke those emotions in the wording, in the copy of your listings? Can you put your why in there? Can you put in photos that evoke those emotions? So you're standing out from every other condo or every other mountain cabin because people are resonating with your why. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And the other thing that I just want to add to that, it may not be, and I'm curious to get your perspective, it may not be my why, it might be my target avatar's why, why they're going on vacation, right?
Yep.
So I love the concept of evoking emotion through our listing copy, because I feel like when you do that, it really, your listing actually acts as a magnet for your ideal guests when you nail that.
Right. For sure. Like if you are near a national park, you have your why. They're going there for those attractions and to be, to get those experiences with their families, those lifelong memories, those monuments, those scenes. But in your property, did they travel from Europe to get there? Did they travel long distances? Can you be a resting place of a weary traveler that just spent 12 hours to get there, right? It's about really understanding their entire customer journey. Do you need to provide, cozy robes because they just need a bath after that long flight? Or, what is their entire online to in-person journey to really that you can really step up and make it special?
Yep. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Such good stuff. I am also curious about your thoughts on promotional items and if promotional items you feel like can make an impact for hosts within their property.
I definitely do. There's so many fun ways to incorporate promotional items with your logo. So once you have your logo established, you might have those iterations of it that we talked about, maybe a black one, maybe a white one. You can not only merchandise your stuff because everybody likes to walk away with, a t-shirt or a hat or a mug, but also what are they going to use in the property? So if you're going to provide a beach cooler bag, put a logo on that. They're carrying that to the beach with them. They're going to see that. They're going to remember that. It's just like repetition builds that equity that we talked about. Here's one that I love that most people don't think of. The chip clip.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here's why I think you should throw a logo on 1,000 of those and put them in your properties, because most people don't travel with a chip clip, but they buy the chips there and they bring them home. And then, they're bringing home a half a bag and they took your chip clip with them. Who cares? That's free advertising for you. You know how stuff just sort of sneaks away from your property.
Right.
Or the little koozies, they can take those to the beach while they're there. But if they happen to make them in their car and on the way home, great. You just got some brand awareness. So there's a lot of little tricks to branding stuff that you probably wouldn't think of, that whether they use it there and leave it there or whether they take it home, it's kind of a win-win.
I love it. I love it. Janice, this is so fun. Like, I feel like I could talk to you about this stuff for hours. In the interest of time, I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. Oh. And I'm going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to your mind. The questions will be simple, I promise. Somewhat simple. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, Stacey. You said it would be simple. The Greek islands.
Ooh. I have never been. I have heard they are gorgeous.
Yes, it is magical. And we did a cruise there, but not a big cruise. It was only like a 6-passenger sailboat. And you get to swim in the water, which has so much salt in it that you float without trying. Like you can just lay there and float. It's crazy and it's awesome. So I loved that trip and I cannot wait to get back because there's so much more to see there.
Wow. Amazing. Okay. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Oh, I feel like I want to put Finland on the list.
That's an interesting choice. Tell me about that.
I wonder if I'm brave enough because I feel like it would be so cold, but just to stay in one of those winter igloos and look at the stars in the middle of like the darkest night would be amazing. Because they have these, either the frozen igloos or the kind of glass geodomes that you sleep in, and they're like candlelit and magical. So maybe one day I'll make it there and we'll spend a Christmas or something.
I would vote for the geodome as long as it has heat.
Oh, they have heat. Oh, yeah, they have heat.
I could not do the igloo that's, I don't like cold. So
no, right.
All right. What is one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of marketing?
I thought it was a college curriculum that sounded fun. I thought it was, I got an advertising degree because I thought advertising sounded so fun and you get to come up with these catchy taglines and work with big brands. But I realize so much of it is about our organic consumer behavior. There's so much, and you and I talked about this whole time about emotion and how much it's part of our daily lives, and the data behind marketing. Like, that wasn't really a thing when I started out. It was not very measurable. Now there's so many ways that people can measure what they do and really get that consumer behavior right. I feel like a lot of online platforms get gigged for, listening to what we do, watching all of our moves and collecting all our data. But the goal isn't to be spies. It's to create a even better experience. So it's more targeted for you. So marketing is just getting better over time. Whereas it used to be really fun. Now it's really helping us do our jobs better.
Yeah. It's funny. So I used to, back in the day, work as a digital marketing strategist, and I'm again dating myself, but they always used to say, 50% of your advertising works and 50% of it doesn't. It's just figuring out is the right 50%, right? But, a lot of people would get creeped out by the technology that exists that does follow your online behavior. But for me, it's something I actually appreciate.
Yeah.
I actually love the fact that Facebook will serve me ads that actually can help my business, so I think for me personally, because I've been exposed to the other side, it doesn't bother me. But I know for lots of folks that could be a little big brother. They feel like it's big brotherish,
Yeah, I totally get that too. But, my husband hunts and he's in all kinds of sports. Do I want to see like the next hockey stick coming up on the side of my screen? I don't care,
Exactly. Okay. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ask for what you want, because you're making a lot of assumptions that people already know. And when you do that, that goes for friendships, marriage, career, boss, whatever. Make a clear request. Make a clear and simple request and ask for what you want, because people can't read your mind.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice. Great
and simple. It's really simple.
Very simple. Yep. It's very simple in theory. Sometimes it's difficult to implement.
Right.
Okay. Last question. What is one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
I end my night with gratitude every night about all the things I'm grateful for. Yesterday was Mother's Day. I miss my mama so much, and I'm grateful for having fantastic parents who just lived with integrity and always taught me how to do the right thing. I think that is the most underrated job in the world, is showing up and being a great parent. Like, I'm so immensely grateful for that.
What a beautiful answer. Janice, if people want to learn more about you and or inquire about how you might be able to support them, where is the best place for them to find you online?
Oh, Marshmallow Hill has all the ways to reach me. I have a free data report on what guests want. I know we didn't touch on that, but I asked 370 people what their expectations were of a short-term rental, including like how to communicate with them, what are their expectations for groups versus kids. They can find that. They can subscribe by email. You'll find my social channels, and I have courses on branding your short-term rentals. So any way that I can be of service, I just found this industry to be so supportive and holistically there for each other. Like, I want to help as many people be successful as possible. So I hope that you do reach out. I hope that I can be helpful in some way.
Amazing. Janice, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Stacey.
Now, before you go, I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the amazing women inside the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group, where we eat, sleep, breathe, and talk short-term rentals each and every day. At the time of this recording, a week ago, Airbnb had some glitches with their reviews, and Elizabeth Carlson hopped into our group and she posted, if you haven't yet, go check your property's review count and rating on Airbnb. Report back with findings. There is a glitch. And that particular post sent more than 240 women out checking their Airbnb reviews and reporting back. And Elizabeth, I just want to give a quick shout out to you and say thank you for bringing that to the attention of the group, and appreciate your willingness to jump in and help others in their short-term rental journeys. I just, again, want to thank you for being with me and for always tuning in. This is such a treat for me to have the opportunity to not only serve the women inside my Facebook group, serve the women inside my training, mentoring, and mastermind programs, but to serve you, my podcast listeners. So thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you soon.